The real economy does not take place on public television, financial news networks, or stock market tickers. The decisions that shape continents, manipulate supply chains, and dictate the flow of global capital happen entirely behind unmarked doors. To enter these rooms, traditional metrics of success mean absolutely nothing. You do not get invited by flashing luxury watches or making noise on social media. You get invited because your infrastructure has reached a scale where you are recognized as a silent, operational peer. Today, you cross that barrier. You step out of the public static and into an environment occupied exclusively by the 0.001%. 5 individuals who control more capital than multiple sovereign nations combined are sitting at a single table. There are no cameras here. There is no public relations team. In this room, the theater of the consumer world completely vanishes, replaced by a ruthless, calculated logic. They do not talk about trends, and they certainly do not talk about price. They talk about raw leverage, generational preservation, and systemic control. Listen closely to how they think, because once you understand the unwritten rules of the shadow board, the way you look at money changes permanently. Welcome to the room where the world is actually designed. The first billionaire across the table sloped his notebook shut, looked directly at my plain blue cap, and spoke. He said the biggest trap regular people fall into is worshipping liquid currency. Cash is an illusion. It is a depreciating asset designed by governments to lose value over time, ensuring that the masses remain trapped on a treadmill of perpetual labor. True wealth does not store its energy in fiat bank accounts. True wealth owns the underlying infrastructure of reality. They own the deep-water shipping terminals that move the consumer goods. They own the proprietary automation software that manages the assembly lines. They own the data pipelines that power corporate networks. When you own the infrastructure, inflation ceases to be a threat and becomes your primary growth mechanic. As the value of currency drops, the price of your assets simply scales upward to match the deficit. While the average individual brags about having $1 million sitting in a commercial checking account, the elite look at them with quiet pity. Cash is nothing more than a temporary transactional lubricant. True power lies in owning the machine that extracts the cash in the first place. Stop saving paper. Start acquiring systemic leverage. As the architecture grows, the social circle naturally shrinks. People will notice your absence and label it as arrogance. They cannot comprehend a wealth that doesn't scream for attention, so they assume you have failed entirely. You begin vetting the few people allowed near your perimeter. You exchange casual acquaintances for specialized institutional minds. At this level, trust is not a feeling, it is a calculated risk management strategy wrapped in binding legal frameworks. You enter the realm of the true capital class. These individuals do not wear massive logos or drive loud sports cars. They wear tailored, unbranded textiles and focus their conversations strictly on logistics, sovereign risk, and generational preservation. Maintaining an average public profile becomes your greatest asset. By dressing, driving, and living within normal parameters, you blend perfectly into the background noise of society. You become a ghost moving seamlessly through a noisy world. Your private information is locked inside a fortress. No public registries link your personal identity to your holding networks. You have achieved the ultimate strategic balance, total command over massive economic power, with absolutely zero exposure. The scaling phase culminates in a silent liquidation event. A private competitor buys a percentage of your system or an automated dividend payout executes. Millions clear into your corporate repository without a single press release or public announcement. This is the exact point where amateur operators destroy their legacy. The sudden surge of capital creates an overwhelming urge to flex, to buy the supercars, to seek revenge on doubters. You bypass the trap completely. Instead of luxury dealerships, you visit private banking institutions. You are onboarded into tiers reserved exclusively for high-net-worth operators. The conversations here revolve around asset allocation, tax minimization strategies, and multi-jurisdictional protection protocols. The windfall is immediately routed into a secondary reinvestment engine. It buys sovereign bonds, institutional real estate, and hard assets. The goal is no longer growth, it is absolute defense. You turn volatile cash into permanent stability. For the first time, absolute freedom is achieved. You owe no answers to anyone. Your living expenses are completely covered by silent yield streams. You have successfully bought back your lifetime, yet nobody knows your name. True wealth introduces an entertaining social dynamic, constant public misjudgment. You will regularly find yourself in rooms with entry-level millionaires who feel the need to lecture you, projecting their own insecurities onto your quiet posture. You possess the ultimate advantage, asymmetry of knowledge. They are playing for applause, you are playing for systemic ownership. You let them win the verbal argument because you already own the infrastructure they rely on daily. When a local company or a loud competitor attempts to squeeze your interests, they realize too late who sits on the cap table. You don't fight with loud words. You let your legal entities execute a quiet market acquisition. The realization is crushing for them. Not because you humiliated them publicly, but because they discovered your true scale in absolute silence. They understand that while they were flexing revenue, you were controlling the asset supply chain. Underestimation is the ultimate armor. Let the world think you are average. Let them think you are struggling. The smaller your public profile, the greater your operational flexibility. True power never requires a stage. At $450 million, you decouple your wealth from any single nation. You establish a multi-jurisdictional sovereign setup. Your holding companies are in one region, your banking is in another, and your physical residence is completely flexible. You utilize the ultimate wealth tool, the irrevocable trust. You legally separate ownership from control. You own absolutely nothing under your personal name, yet you control everything through designated institutional structures, rendering your wealth completely immune to frivolous lawsuits. You establish a private family office governance system. This framework operates like a private bank dedicated entirely to your family's longevity. It manages liquidity, coordinates asset defense, and prepares the legal runway for generations that haven't even been born yet. This creates synthetic anonymity. To the public database, your digital footprint is non-existent. Your homes, your vehicles, and your domestic utility accounts are managed through corporate wrappers. You walk the earth as a completely untraceable economic ghost. This is the premium you pay for complete freedom. It requires capital, discipline, and a total surrender of social vanity. But in exchange, you receive the rarest asset in human history, absolute autonomy over your life without public static. When you look closely at modern society, you realize the public flex is an admission of insecurity. People build loud lives because they desperately need external validation to feel complete. The moment you become self-validated, the theater loses all meaning. Your metric of wealth is entirely different. It is not measured in luxury assets, but in the complete ownership of your time. If you can wake up every single morning and decide exactly what to do with your day, you have won. You are building a ghost legacy. A foundation that silently protects your family for 3 generations without forcing them into the toxic spotlight of public wealth. They receive the absolute freedom of choice, completely unburdened by social expectations. The transition requires you to kill your ego completely. You must accept being overlooked, being misjudged, and being entirely underestimated. But the inner peace that comes with absolute invisible power is worth every single sacrifice. The system is running. The infrastructure is set. The world will keep chasing noise, but your path is already carved out in stone. Shut down the inputs, ignore the static, and go build your empire in total silence.